Hello and welcome to all of our partner organizations and field offices tuning in this morning. I know for many of you, it's now the end of the workday, so I'm excited to see so many attendees. And for those of you that will be watching this recording, we thank you for also taking the time to listen to this webinar. To introduce myself, my name is Stephanie Bandick, and I am part of the Global Programs team at CIPE. I have worked with my colleague Maiko Nakagaki on the Technology for Democracy project over the past year, along with our ICT for Development consultant, Panoply Digital. As many of you might recall, last fall, Panoply Digital reached out to many of our current partners to survey and interview you basically to see both your capabilities and how you were currently using technology, as well as the areas in which CIPE could support you with new strategies and resources through training workshops. From these assessment results, we had 4 partner organizations and 3 regions chosen to do training workshops. These workshops focused on topics based off the need and demand of your partners, which included mobile and web tools for communications and social media, research, polling and surveying, and professional development, among other topics. To support our partners, especially those of you that we were not able to support with an individual training workshop in this project phase, we wanted to create a tech resource page on CIPE's Virtual Business Association website. So as you can see, I'm currently sharing this screen, and that can be reached at www.cipe.org/VBA. So the purpose of today's webinar is to introduce and explain these resource pages, as well as to gain your feedback and suggestions on how we can further improve this resource page. After I introduce and highlight a few different tools on each of the pages, I will open it up for any questions. And then afterwards, I will send along a survey just to gain further feedback from you, as well as ask that you continue to send in any questions that you might have. So before we begin, I would like to explain briefly how to use GoToWebinar if we have any first-time users. Each participant is muted. However, you can type a question in the question box, which should be in your control panel. Mine is on the right side of my screen. And then from that point, I can either respond to your question privately, or if I feel it's a question that is relevant for the rest of the group, I'll go ahead and reply all. As you'll see, it says Kim Betcher is speaking. We're using a shared account, but of course, it's Stephanie, not Kim here. So moving on into the webinar. Why did we do this project in the first place? This project was an idea from my colleague Maiko, just seeing the range of developing information and communication technologies, or ICT tools, that were available, and thinking through how they could be helpful for the business membership organizations and NGOs that we work with. There's a lot of advantages to ICT, such as increasing the speed of information sharing and also maximizing really valuable staff time and resources. We wanted to think through the ways in which we could continue supporting you, our partners, and field staff, who we appreciate have very heavy workloads at some times, and your time is very valuable. So thinking through these different resources, there's many ways in which it could improve day-to-day responsibilities, as well as your external efforts in terms of advocacy campaigns and education and awareness raising. Through the interviews and surveys, we found significant differences across the regions in terms of the types of technology you were using, some more mobile focused, others more web-based, as well as significant ranges in connectivity and infrastructure, many of which had blackouts or variations in internet connectivity throughout the day. So as we were focusing on creating these different resource toolkits, we wanted to really focus on tools that were able to be used in a low bandwidth environment and also at either no or a low cost. As you'll see on the website, these resources are split into 4 main categories: advocacy, membership development and services, financial management, and organizational management. I think an important lesson learned that we've garnered from this experience is before adopting a new tool or platform, it's very important for you to think through why you would like to adopt this platform, how it will help your organization, starting really with a need or a demand, and then choosing a technology that fits with that, rather than beginning with that resource. In addition, it's important to consider the tech environment in which your organization is operating. So what are the main mediums or channels for reaching your target audiences? We know for some of you that's the member companies that you're working with, and others that's civil society or government leaders. And then thinking through how comfortable your target audiences are with these mediums. Are they easily accessible to them? Another example might be doing a radio podcast rather than an online webinar if radio is easier to access than online. And then how does connectivity, reach, and reliability influence these mediums? As I mentioned before, many of you noted that you have challenges such as blackouts or poor connections throughout the day. From the various surveys and interviews, we chose 4 different organizations in 3 different regions, and we are developing what we've learned in working with each of these organizations into case studies, which are in the process of being published as feature service articles. As you can see, there were many variances. Organization A, for example, had challenges such as poor internet, mobile data, and GSM connectivity, as well as very real challenges of security and safety for those working at the organization. So we wanted to focus on security encryption, as well as communication and data collection and dissemination. And we can get into the resources that deal with security and encryption later. Another example is Organization B, which had challenges again, such as low bandwidth environment, access to connectivity, and limitations in terms of funding. But what we saw was a great area for potential was a very high usage of mobile phones. So we focused our training on mobile training programs that the organization could deliver for its staff, as well as the entrepreneurs that they work with on the ground, as well as mobile communication. How could you effectively and quickly, but also at no cost, communicate with these different audiences on a day-to-day basis? And then lastly, data collection and research, all through mobile phone. If you're following along with my screen, you can see here at the bottom a YouTube URL. So CIPE and its consultant, Panoply Digital, created a series of digital training videos covering the many different resources that we focused on in our workshop. And you're able to access that by going to the YouTube page, where you can see here now that Michael Gallagher has put together all these different resources and explained how to use each of them. So this is really helpful in doing a step-by-step process of using these resources. You can see here we have Google Forms, search alerts, which are really helpful in terms of research, WordPress, which is explaining how to use a free website platform, bulk SMS, SMS poll, also very good for doing quick mobile surveys, Canva, which is a design platform at no cost. And then now we have a few different resources helpful for security and encryption, like Telegram, SpiderOak, as well as here at the bottom, Open Learning is helpful for free professional development courses. Moving along, we're now on the advocacy page. As many of you know from conducting your own very successful advocacy campaigns, you must begin by asking what you want to do, why, what do you want to know, what do you want to achieve with your advocacy campaign. After defining these objectives, then you should think through your tech environment. I know many of you do stakeholder analyses when you're thinking through how to conduct your advocacy campaign. So in a similar way, it's helpful to think through what are the best tools for contacting your audience and how comfortable, as we mentioned before, is your audience with these tools. We've broken these sections into the various stages of an advocacy campaign. So in the beginning, as you're brainstorming your advocacy strategy, the following tools might be helpful. For example, listening and tracking legislation. You can use resources like Google Alert, Feedly, Old Reader, and Pocket. The variances among these different resources is their usage in low bandwidth environments. For example, Feedly is more widely used and better than Old Reader, but it also uses more bandwidth. So for those of you in low bandwidth or poor connectivity regions, use Old Reader. Then we also have M-Government and e-government tools. This basically means mobile tools versus web-based platforms. And these include Citizen Space, Democracy OS, Dialogue, a few different examples. You'll see when we've introduced some of these resources, they might be followed by fee or free, and that just indicates that they might be available at low cost or no cost. And then again, gathering information or feedback from your partner networks. So SurveyMonkey, Google Forms are great free online surveying tools, whereas bulk SMS, YouReport, SMS Poll are among the different effective mobile tools. As you're implementing your advocacy campaigns, there's also a number of free and low-cost tools that can help you with those efforts. I know a number of you are using platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn groups, Twitter, and you're doing that very successfully, but there's also different strategies and toolkits and other platforms that could continue helping you with those campaigns as well as really strengthen them. So one resource to point out is BMO's Mobile Engagement Toolkit produced by the ITC ILO. Another is National Democratic Institute's DEM tools, which are free tools for those of you working in civil society, which include customer relationship management platforms, petitions, candidate platforms, and different tools to focus on election analysis, etc. At the bottom of this page, we've focused on different articles and case studies from other organizations on how they're innovatively using social media. At this point, I would like to invite all of you, our partners and field staff, to write in to either Micah or myself and to give us the ways in which you're using social media innovatively, because we would love to kind of take your examples and share them with the rest of our partner network so everyone can continue to learn. Especially as you're doing creative advocacy campaigns, I think it's really helpful for us to learn from each other as a network. And at the very bottom, we have a few different courses, research, and strategies. Our next page is membership development and services. Especially for our business membership organizations, so business associations and chambers that we work with, you face a big responsibility in terms of recording membership, keeping track of who is a paying member versus not, and also retention. So there's a number of tools that can help you with this, some of which is CIPE CRM, which is a free tool for tracking, organizing, and retaining members, Neon CRM, as well as MemberLeap, which is a management software. So these are different platforms. And if you have specific questions about these different resources, you can also feel free to email us. Two other resources just to note, MailChimp is a mass emailing platform. So if you have a specific advocacy campaign or you want to do a monthly newsletter, this is free for up to 2,000 subscribers. and 12,000 emails per month. So this is a very easy way of creating a newsletter and sending it out to a list of your member organizations, however frequently you'd like to. Dropbox is a storage space, much like any sort of shared drive that you might have on your computer or network drive, and this is free up to 2 gigabytes of space. Now moving into financial management. A few free or low-cost tools to point out in financial management would be City CRM again, as well as a few different accounting tools such as FreshBooks or QuickBooks or Sage 50, and then a few other interesting resources like as Shoebox, which is at the bottom, an information management tool. So you can scan receipts and turn them into expense reports, and also scan business cards. Lastly, organizational management. When we're developing resources for this, we focused both on organizational governance in respect to the governments that you're working with. So for example, Fix My Community is a free tool that allows citizens to monitor their local governments as they see different issues coming up. So this is one example where governance pertains to government as a whole. But the rest of the tools here are pertaining to your organization itself. So Asana, for example, is a no-cost tool that can be accessed both on the web or mobile phones that tracks tasks and conversations, helping with project management. Two other resources to point out are Slack and Trello. To give kind of CIPE's example, within the DC headquarters, we started with Slack, which is a cloud-based tool used for instant messaging and collaboration. This was an idea of one of my colleagues in the Middle East and North Africa team, and it started very organically. We tested it out with a smaller group of people, and then as people wanted to join Slack, join the CIPE group, they could be added, and this has really been built out now to the whole organization. So as you're thinking about using a different platform or resource, it's advisable that you might start with your team and see how your team works with the platform and then build it out to the greater organization rather than starting with it, trying to have buy-in from everyone and maybe not having it be as effective. Trello is another example helpful for project management. So whereas Slack is more communication, Trello is more program or project management. So you can see individual tasks and who is working on what, when they've finished it, as well as a number of different tools such as color coding by theme or by project and adding in deadlines and due dates. You'll notice that each of the resources that I've included on this page are hyperlinked. So you can click on them to see either the website that's offering the resource or some sort of how-to video or strategies for using that platform. So that now concludes the resource sections. I've had a few different questions that are more individual rather than for the group. So if we don't have any other questions, I would like to just go ahead and give thanks to a few different groups. Firstly, I'd like to thank Panoply Digital, who's our ICT for Development consultant. They were hugely helpful in thinking through the different resources to give for the training workshops as well as these pages, and also just advising CIPE as we work on this tech project. I'd also want to thank each of our partner organizations, those of you that completed the initial surveys and took time to do interviews with us. That's been hugely helpful in identifying the different gaps and areas in which CIPE can continue to support you, as well as those that we worked with for the workshops. Just your help as we're organizing the different workshops and the venues and each of the tools, computers, that kind of thing that we used during the workshop. It was really a great experience, speaking both for myself and Maiko, working with each of you. Just to reiterate, changing platforms and using new technologies can be difficult, but it's not impossible. So you should not expect to transition to a new platform immediately. There's a great deal of cultural change, behavioral change that's involved with embracing a new technology or platform. So I think lesson learned is discuss with your staff, with your colleagues, how this would benefit and improve each of your work that you're doing, and then choose technologies to help. As I mentioned before, if you have stories or specific ways in which you feel your organization is innovatively using these resources, or if you have any specific questions on any of these tools and you'd like to learn more, please feel free to email me at sbandic@cipe.org, and I will go ahead and write that into the chat so everyone can see. Great. So with that being sent out, thank you all again for tuning in, and I hope that we get to work together again soon.